Sports Blitz Denver episode number 2. Riggs Tamburo, Bryson Owens. Hope everybody's having a beautiful Monday here. Getting on in, Bryson, to a great month, my man. We got March Madness pulling up here. We got MLB opening day right around the corner. NHL playoffs are coming. NBA playoffs are coming. It's getting down to the dirty. Oh, and it's NFL free agency week. It's starting to heat up. The Players Championship, my man, is this week. I just keep thinking of things that are going to be happening in the month of March, man. I'm looking forward to it. But, folks, with that said, today we are talking Avalanche, 5-game win streak. How long will it continue? Is there a world that they could get to 10 wins in a row? NFL free agency, a lot of moves that could be coming. We're going to try to predict some things, whether they're Denver-based or not. But do not get it twisted. We will be talking Denver Broncos. And finally, those Denver Nuggets, second in the West right now. Big game coming up this week, man. The one I got circled is the LA Lakers. We're going to talk that one there, game predictions for you guys. But with all that said, let's hop on in, my man, before NFL free agency and talk about the Colorado Avalanche. Got these standings up for you guys in the Central Division. Jets on top, 44-16, Stars 41-20, and those Colorado Avalanche right behind at 38-24. Kind of a shocker, honestly, to see the Minnesota Wild at 36-23 without Kirill Kaprizov, their star player. So they're kind of hanging around there. But Colorado right now, the clear hottest team in the Central, 5-game win streak. You see it right there, 7-3 over their last 10. Bryson, you and I talked about it last week, my man, that big game coming up with the Penguins. They went 1-1 into the end of the second intermission. And it was kind of like, uh-oh. And then they went ahead and won that thing by 3-4 goals and cruised to victory. So since that day, it's been nothing but wins, my man. How you feeling about the Avalanche right now? 5-game win streak, getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting to see with the Colorado Avalanche during this win streak is the full spectrum in which they are capable of winning games. Like during this win streak, we talked about it before the Penguins game, the improved goaltending and defense once they got the new goaltenders in throughout the course of the year, and they won the first 3 games of this win streak 5-1, 5-2, 4-1. So they allowed 4 goals through 3 games. That's pretty remarkable. But then you see the next 2 games, 7-3, 7-4. You're like, okay, what's going to happen if the Avalanche goaltending isn't at the level it's been over the last couple of months? Are the Avalanche still capable of just outscoring teams at a ridiculous rate? And the answer is yes, they're absolutely capable of still just pouring in goals on you in a hurry. Like the last game against the Maple Leafs, they were down 4-2 or 4-3 going into the third period. Like they were losing that game, and they went on and scored, I believe it was 4 or 5 unanswered goals. They scored the Maple Leafs 4-0 in the third period. Like it was just complete takeover in the winning time. The game against the Penguins, like you mentioned, it was a tied game for a long time, and then winning time came around, and the Avalanche showed why they won a Stanley Cup a few years ago, why they're still considered by many one of the top teams in the NHL. And then now they have all these new players. They have a completely revamped roster full of guys who I think are maybe better fits than what they had beforehand. So it's been a really interesting way to see the Avalanche get to 5 games, 1 in a row, different ways each time, some of them through defense, some of them just straight up outscoring guys, and then a handful of these games just won in the clutch. So that's been my biggest takeaway, is just the Avalanche being able to win in more than just one way. Like it felt like a couple of years ago when they went on that Stanley Cup run, it was all offense. Like Georgiev had his moments and the goaltending worked at times, but it was pretty much just Nathan McKinnon's gonna outscore everyone that year, right?
Yeah.
This it seems like they have more ways to win games, which is going to be needed once the playoffs come around.
Yeah, look, Jets and Stars right above them there in the standings. Can they hunt them down? Can they keep the 5-game win streak going? You guys see it right here tonight. The Avalanche take on the Chicago Blackhawks, that one at Ball Arena. Then the team in 4th place on Tuesday night, they're going to find themselves in Minnesota for that game there. That's a big-time game. You got to win that game. You got to kind of stomp those guys back down and say, hey, you stay below. You ain't coming up here. Then they go on the road from Minnesota to Calgary to take on the Flames on Friday night. And finally, they will be back home for 1 game. They come home, they stop by, and they hit the road again against the Stars Obviously, very tough game, much needed win game. Go back to the Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs want that one back. That's a tough game. And then the Senators on the road, which it's a back-to-back. So that could be a dangerous game too. The Senators, really good team in overtime, good at sending games to overtime, could be dangerous for Colorado. So Bryson, looking here at the next few games, my man, Blackhawks, Wild, Flames, Stars. Where do you believe the next loss is going to come?
Well, I'd like that they get one more kind of a gimme game. Sounds rude in professional sports, but the Blackhawks are not a very good team. So you do get one more game before this kind of brutal stretch where, like you talked about, 5 of their next 6 games are on the road after the Blackhawks game. So that's a brutal stretch right there. And a lot of those against some of the best teams in the league, like the Wild. The game I'm focusing on the most, and this isn't necessarily where I see the next loss coming. I think this is just the game I'm going to have circled on the schedule the most if I'm the Avalanche, is that game at home against the Stars for a lot of reasons. One, it's your one home game during this stretch. So obviously you want to show out for your fans. But 2, everything that's gone on with Mikko Rantanen since he got traded has been nothing but ugly. And it's kind of been ugly on Rantanen's side. It has not painted Rantanen in a positive light since being traded from the Avalanche. And he's now a star. He signed that big contract extension with them. They're the team right above the Colorado Avalanche in the standings. And so that's going to be an emotional game. It's going to be an important game for the Avalanche to get that one, your one home game in this stretch. So I'm not sure necessarily when the next loss will be, but that's the game I have circled on the schedule for the Avalanche.
Fair enough, but you did avoid my question, my man. So if you don't think they're going to lose the gimme game to the Chicago Blackhawks, are you more worried about the Minnesota Wild on the road or the Calgary Flames on the road before that Stars game? Or, hey, are they on an 8-game win streak going into Dallas?
I think they could definitely be on an 8-game win streak heading into that one. I mean, I'm not as worried about the Wild one because just the offense disparity between the two teams. I mean, you look at the numbers, and the Avalanche are pretty much a consensus top 5 offense in the NHL, and the Minnesota Wild right now, kind of a consensus bottom 10 offense. So I think push comes to shove, defense is pretty even on both sides. I think the Avalanche are going to be able to just outscore, outshoot, outpace the Wild in that game. So I think based on that, the Flames game is probably the one I'm a little bit more worried about. Goaltending a little bit more even. Defense is a little, maybe even more on the Flames side, maybe a little bit. Offense, not quite as even, but the Flames are very good at getting shots on goals. They're 10th in the NHL in that category, so they can get a lot of attempts on the goal. So I would say of those, the Flames game is probably the one I would be the most worried about.
It's a tough one, man. Minnesota Wild expected to have star player Kirill Kaprizov back already, but it's just been this extended. He got hurt in January? They said 4 weeks. They thought 2 weeks ago was the week. Last week I heard rumors that this is the week he's back, and he's not out there yet. So will he be back by that game on Tuesday night? Honestly, that might just be the game that he's circled to come back for. It's at home. It's a big-time game where they need him. I could see that being the return of Kirill Kaprizov. If he comes back in that game, Bryson, that right there could be a danger game because goaltending-wise, Minnesota playing really good hockey right now. Offensively, like I mentioned, they're holding down the 4th spot, and yet their star player who scores all their goals, gets all of their assists every year. Yep. I think he's one of the most valuable players in hockey, hasn't been out there for damn near over 2 months, coming on 3 months. It's crazy that they are still winning hockey games. So I think without Kirill Kaprizov, I agree with you. I wouldn't be too worried about that game. They're used to Minnesota. They've seen the goaltender many times. Not too worried about that. But if he comes back, folks, that will become the NHL game of the day like that if he comes back. So keep an eye on that one. We'll have updates for you at Sports Blitz Den, DEN on Instagram and Twitter for you guys if he comes back for that game. Kaprizov, McKinnon, I can hear it already. But with that said, my man, I agree. They're going to cruise through Chicago. Then they're going to play the Wild. I'm going to give them a win against the Wild. I'm going to give them a 4-3 overtime win against the Minnesota Wild to get to 7 in a row. And then Calgary, it's a sneaky game, but I'm not a Calorie Flames guy. No, sir. No, sir. 8-game win streak. And I agree with you. Miko Rantanen then says, hey, boys, I'm coming back, and I'm coming to get back some redemption on y'all. I'm going to show y'all what's up. That right there, my dude, we're going to have to get an article on that game on sportsforummedia.com because that is going to be a show Sunday, 1:30 p.m. for all you guys at Ball Arena, 3:30 for you East Coast folks. Well, actually, there's been a time change. But yeah, maybe I'm still right. Maybe I'm still right.
I think you're still right. I think it's still 1:30 Mountain Standard Time.
Okay, because I lost an hour here or gained an hour here, overnight. So, I'm over here tripping. But with that said, guys, the Stars game, I'm going to say just with Bryson, 8-game win streak going into it. If they do choke, though, I think it's against the Flames, which, if anything, gives them a reason to go beat the Dallas Stars. So it's all good. Now, if they lose to the Wild, they could lose to the Flames, they could lose to the Stars, and they could lose to the Maple Leafs. All of a sudden, they could be on a 4-game losing streak, my brother. So the Avalanche got to keep the pedal to the metal, keep the good goaltenders in net, please, and let's just keep running my boy Mackenzie Blackwood out there carrying the team right now. But enough of the Colorado Avalanche. Once again, guys, the Blackhawks game tonight, if we were to give you a bet on that game, take Colorado to win. If you're feeling juicy, take them to win by -1.5 goals there at that nice number. And good luck to you. Should be a 5-1, 5-2 kind of Avalanche game. So enjoy that one. But moving on through, my man, NFL free agency, the topic everybody wants to talk about right now. So many big things coming, so many moves. We could start in 50,000 different places, and we will talk Broncos here in just a minute. But I do just want to go ahead and pull up this ESPN article just to kind of kick this thing off and get your guys' brains flowing here. Quarterback Matt Stafford and the Rams reached an agreement on a contract adjustment. Obviously, there was rumors that he could be a Pittsburgh Steeler and all these things. That got shut down really quickly. But you look at the teams right now that are in need of quarterbacks, the Browns, the Giants, the Steelers, some big names still available. Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and the list goes on from there. Bryson, I'm going to turn it on over to you, my brother. Let's just talk quarterbacks first. Any of these guys right now that you feel like you in your mind, you have a place for those guys and you know exactly where they're going?
Well, another team that interestingly entered the equation that I don't think anyone saw coming was the Seattle Seahawks. That's a team that just recently they traded Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders. Thank you, Seahawks, for giving the Broncos 2 more extra wins a year because no one's worried about Geno Smith out here in Broncos country.
Appreciate you.
If you're looking at these names, it's really tough because there are so many dominoes that need to fall. I think obviously Stafford was the first one in the quarterback domino that fell, staying with LA. And then it really depends on what the Tennessee Titans are going to do. I think the Tennessee Titans hold so many players and so many teams' futures in their hand because they have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And they could decide, hey, we're in love with Cam Ward or we're in love with Shedeur Sanders. We're going to take them first overall. And that leaves a lot of veteran names still out there looking for homes. Or they're like, hey, we aren't super high on either of these quarterbacks in the draft. We're going to go get a veteran and build the roster around that guy. And now all of a sudden that opens up things in the draft process for quarterbacks. So I think the first thing that's going to happen is whatever the Titans decide they're going to do. If the Titans decide they're going to stay put and they're not going to get a big name quarterback in free agency, then all hell breaks loose to the quarterback market and you're going to see guys go places you weren't expecting. I think one thing, I want to bring up the Seahawks again because I think they're now a fascinating team when it comes to the quarterback market. And there's 2 directions I really am interested in seeing them go. One, maybe they still think they can compete because they let go of Tyler Lockett. They're going to trade DK Metcalf. So it sounds like they're looking towards more of a rebuild type of thing. But I'm really interested to see if they want Justin Fields. I know that there were reports that Sam Darnold was an interest of theirs after the Geno Smith trade. I think Justin Fields is an interesting one because he's still so young. He's still so dynamic offensively. He fills a lot of the holes on offense that they have because that offensive line isn't great, so he can make things happen with his legs behind the bad offensive line. And he improved as a passer. He's still not a great passer. I would probably call him a league average thrower of the football in the NFL, but he improved. He's young. He probably won't break the bank. Like you're probably not going to spend $30+ million on him. So you're still getting cheaper at the quarterback position. And if Justin Fields hits, you have a quarterback for the next decade because he's still young. So I think Justin Fields is an interesting name to keep an eye on there for Seattle. And then also,
I got a question for you, real quick.
Yeah.
Because you threw out that Justin Fields could be a Seattle guy. You know, Sam Darnold's name's been thrown out. I've kind of seen the mix match going on because a lot of people also think Darnold to the Jets, Darnold to Seattle, Justin to Seattle. And you know what, Bryson? What about Justin to the Jets?
Justin to the Jets is interesting. I think
they've done the Sam Darnold train before. They've already done that.
Yeah, they've done the Sam Darnold thing. I don't think they're going to go back to him. The Jets are such a fascinating team because they have a new coaching staff with Aaron Glenn, their head coach. They have a new GM there, the former assistant GM here in Denver. So I have no idea what direction they're going to look at quarterback. I think they're going to go young and just do a whole redo. I think they're going to draft someone in the draft. I think they could be a sneaky name because I don't think they're an interesting name to watch out for Shedeur Sanders if he keeps falling in the draft. Because there's a chance Shedeur Sanders isn't the first quarterback taken. Like it's pretty much, I've seen reports that it's universally accepted that Cam Ward's going to be the first quarterback taken in this draft class. And if that's the case, I mean, who knows if Cleveland's going to take a quarterback? Who knows if New York's going to go veteran at the quarterback market? And then after those two teams, we know New England's not going to. Jacksonville's not going to. Vegas now isn't going to take a quarterback in the first round. Maybe Shedeur Sanders falls to the Jets at 7. And so with a new coaching staff, new GM, I think they just go full rebuild and they take a quarterback in the draft. I think they're staying away from trying this veteran retread thing because it hasn't worked for New York in the past.
Do you believe, though, that if Shedeur Sanders is available at 6, I believe that there will be a phone call coming from somewhere in Steelers range to come on up there at the number 6 to come get him? Because I think he's not worth trading up from Tennessee to go get Shedeur Sanders. But all of a sudden, if he falls down, let's just say Jackson Dart goes before him to the New York Giants or something like that, right? Let's just say. Now, all of a sudden, if you know the Jets are going quarterback, which I actually talked about this yesterday on the New York podcast, and I said a couple options there just to kind of run that down really quickly. Go watch that episode at Sports Blitz NY. But with that said, I said, look, a couple options here. One, the Jets could just straight up trade to the top with Tennessee, go get the quarterback that they want, go get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and just go do it. But the second option is Cleveland takes a quarterback, Giants take a quarterback. At 7, you probably go for Jackson Dart. But I said, I'm not sure if Jackson Dart is 7th pick worthy. I think you could trade back to like 10 to 12, let someone else come up and get the defensive player that they want. And all of a sudden, you can go ahead and still get your guy at 10 to 12 before the Steelers or someone like that trade up and come and get him. So that's an option. And the third option is you don't go with a quarterback at 7. You do trade back. You take the next player on the board. And in the second round, you go after a guy like Jalen Milroe or something like that. So I think the options here are wide open for the New York Jets. And I don't believe that they need to go after a veteran quarterback or something like that. So I'm kind of right there with you. Definitely young. They very well are going to sign the Darnold because they're the freaking New York Jets. All right. But they shouldn't sign Sam Darnold.
Can I give you my thought process on how I have Shedeur going to the Jets at 7?
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of reports going out right now that the Titans are in love with Cam Ward. I think they're going to stick at number 1, and I think they're going to take Cam Ward at number 1. Okay, so that's the first quarterback.
Just so you know, I haven't heard really anybody say that. So that's interesting.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've seen a few. Maybe it's not like the most popular buzz going around, but I've seen some reports that they like Cam Ward, and I mean they need a quarterback. They want to get cheaper and younger at that kind of position. So I think they're going to take Cam Ward number 1 overall. I think Cleveland's going to do something weird, like sign Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal and have him be there until Deshaun Watson gets healthy. The reason I think that is, I don't think they're going to try and get a young quarterback in this draft because they keep restructuring Deshaun's deal, which tells me that they keep promising Deshaun Watson that once Deshaun's healthy, he's their starting quarterback, which I don't get. I don't understand what they're doing with that.
They're paying him, so they're pissed. They're like, "You're playing, bro. You're playing whether you like it or not."
Yeah, so I think they're going to sign some veteran quarterback to be just there until Watson's healthy. I think New York New York's going to sign Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Both of them are going to the Giants. New York's not going quarterback. Jacksonville's not going quarterback. And now Vegas has Geno Smith. So I think the Jets are in prime position to land Shedeur Sanders if they want to start over and go full rebuild.
Wow. First of all, I don't love your order, but I like what you're saying about Shedeur to the Jets because the situation makes sense. The placement makes sense. What they're looking for makes sense. I think him and Aaron Glenn would be a great match together. I kind of like what you're saying there with the New York Jets and Shedeur Sanders. Here's the only thing I'm going to change there. If I was to start doing my shape shifting here with this draft order, I do believe that Tennessee is trading out of the first pick. Now, in my opinion, I think Tennessee wants Travis Hunter. And I know that Cleveland and the Giants, in my opinion, both want Cam Ward more than they want Shedeur Sanders. So whichever one of them is willing to pay more, in my opinion, is going to take the number one spot. Tennessee's fine to pick at 2, fine to pick at 3. And here's what's sneaky about it. If Cleveland, who really don't have anything to give up anymore, so let's just say the Giants, if the Giants move up to number 1 and Tennessee go to 3, they're happy to take Travis Hunter at 3, or I think they're just going to stack capital. I think they're going to trade back again. I think they're just going to start stacking. They're going to rock with Will Levis. Will Levis, they've already kind of said that they have faith in Will Levis, whether we all do or even he does. I don't even know anymore, Bryson. But I don't really think Cam Ward at 1 is worth it. With the quarterback class that's coming after this, I'm sorry. I mean, but you know me, though. I haven't been on Cam Ward really all year. I'm not –
I agree.
To me, he's one step better than Malik Willis was coming out of the draft. He's good, but I don't think he's number 1 pick good, in my opinion. So I think Tennessee's trading back. I think Cleveland is going quarterback. I do think the Giants are going to go quarterback. So I think Shedeur and I do think Cam are gone in the first 3. I think Travis goes at 3. I think New England holds. They go with the best defensive player on the board. New England's going to go defensive player. If Travis doesn't go to Tennessee and or they trade back or something, I believe Jacksonville is where Travis Hunter is going to go at number 5. Those are my 2 spots for him, Tennessee and Jacksonville. Like you mentioned with Vegas, they're not going to go quarterback. That just doesn't make sense. I think they're looking for like a Jalen Milroe or someone like that in the second round who they can put behind. Because Geno, don't get it twisted, only signed 1 year. They didn't restructure. They didn't give him more time yet. Nothing like that. So to me, they brought Geno in so that they can draft a guy and kind of get a guy going under Geno Smith. That's what I feel like they're doing. So if they do pull and it's not quite as bad as what the Falcons did, but if they pull a Michael Penix on us, and they sign a big time quarterback, and then they go get a big time quarterback, that won't be shocking either. Example, let me ask you this. If Shedeur is sitting there at 6, do they take him?
I don't think the Raiders are taking him.
Yeah, have you seen how many times Shedeur Sanders has gone to Las Vegas and sat down with the owners and all these love him out there? There's nothing but good things coming out about Shedeur and Las Vegas. He's kind of said, I want to be a Raider. I could see it happening.
I think the trade for Geno Smith, and then they immediately, like the next report was they're looking to sign him to a 3 to 4 year contract extension, to me says Shedeur, they're not interested in a rookie quarterback. They're interested in making Geno Smith the guy for the future for them, which I don't agree with. I don't think Geno Smith is a guy you can rely on for the next 3 to 4 years, but I think that's what Pete Carroll, his head coach in Seattle, I think that's what Pete Carroll wants. Pete Carroll wanted Geno Smith. Pete Carroll doesn't want to start over with a rookie quarterback after that. I think Pete Carroll's probably done in a few years too. I think he wants one more ride with Geno. I mean, Pete Carroll's in his 70s. He can't be coaching forever. So I think Pete Carroll has no interest.
He looks great, though.
I think he has no interest in drafting a rookie quarterback to sit behind Geno Smith when he can draft a player who can start right away from them on the defensive side of the ball or an offensive lineman or whatever it is.
Well, folks, we're going to come right back to free agency talk. But before we do that, my man, Mr. Bryson Owens, has some NFL breaking news for all of you guys. My man.
Yeah. Well, my first prediction of the NFL free agency on our show is officially incorrect because I just said Devontae Adams was going with Aaron Rodgers to New York. Wrong. He is going to the Los Angeles Rams on a 2-year deal. It looks like for $46 million. I know that there were a lot of Bronco fans who, as soon as the report was that Devontae was getting cut, they were like, oh, gotta snag him. I told everyone on social media, I was like, no, Devontae's going to be expensive. He's not worth the trouble, in my opinion. Listen, I think Devontae Adams...
A robbery.
Yeah. I think Devontae Adams still has a decent amount left in the tank, and I am interested to see what... Because I think this signing to the Rams now says they're going to move on from Cooper Kupp. I don't think they're keeping all three of those guys.
100%.
So I think that's going to be interesting to see Devontae Adams with Puka Nacua next to each other. I think it's a good signing for them if they're moving on from Cooper Kupp. I just wouldn't have signed a $23 million a year. Seems a bit expensive for my taste, but it's going to be an interesting pairing between those two receivers with Matthew Stafford slinging the rock there in LA.
Good for LA, but it's too much money. I agree with you. You said $46 million, 2 years. Is there a guarantee anywhere on it?
I don't see the guaranteed money out quite yet.
I'm assuming with his age, that has 100% been included in the contract somewhere. There's like at least half that's got to be guaranteed, like 25 or 20 or something like that. Got to be guaranteed. So that's a bit too much, but there you go, guys. Breaking news, Devontae Adams to the Rams. Bye-bye, Aaron Rodgers. Their time is done. We know Matt Stafford at this point not going anywhere. Yep. So Adams, Nacua, and Stafford, like Bryson said, they're pretty good, man. Kyren Williams, I mean, they got some weapons on that team right now. They got some good tight ends over there. Obviously, Sean McVay ain't going anywhere. Looking to make one more run before Matt Stafford hangs it up there. And calls it a career. So very interesting, some breaking news there, but we are moving on through, my man, to our completion of this free agency talk here. So I know I kind of cut you off. So to take it on back there to where we were at this point with Shedeur Sanders, you do not believe he would be going to the Raiders. I do believe if he's available at 6, he will go to the Raiders. I just don't really think he's available at that time. So, and if he is available, things are going to get crazy in that 10-minute countdown because I'm telling you right now, Bryson, somebody, the Steelers, one of these teams that's in that mid-pick area right now could come make a move and come get him because they can't afford for, let's say, Vegas to go Shedeur, Jets to go Jackson Dart. All of a sudden, they're like, whoa, like, are we going to have to take Jalen Milroe at 21? Like, we're running out of options here. You know what I'm saying? So there is a world where I could see the Steelers coming up and grabbing him there at 6. But once again, you know, I don't know how much we want to give up for him. So, but hey, Bryce, you know me, brother. Call me a fanboy all you want to, my brother. Let me get a Shedeur Sanders jersey up here. Let's get the black and gold chains on. Shout out Colorado. Let's go ahead and get it popping up here in Pittsburgh. I would love it. But all right, my man. Let's talk Broncos here. Is there a move for the Denver Broncos with any of these teams here? Is there a player you could see the Denver Broncos potentially liking in the top 10? Not even quarterback-wise, but wide receivers, running backs is kind of a concern right now for the Denver Broncos. Anybody you could see shaping up here for Denver? Or do you see Denver kind of holding where they're at?
I think Denver, I don't see any world in which Denver trades up into the early parts of the first round. They're sitting at 20 right now. I think if anything, Denver looks at this because by all accounts, this draft is maybe 10 really good players and then a lot of players. Like the meat and potatoes of this draft is going to be in the second and third round. That's where everyone thinks all the value is in this draft. You're going to get a lot of really good players in those middle rounds. I think if anything, if Denver's going to do a move trading either direction in the draft, I think they trade back. Maybe late first round. I can even see them trading out of the first round entirely and just stack up. I can see them just stack up second and third round picks in this draft and just load up in those middle rounds. Because to me, there just isn't a player worth trading up to get. Like, you usually only trade up to get quarterbacks. That's usually why you trade up in the draft. The Broncos don't need a quarterback. And a lot of the positions they need help in, there's a lot of depth in this draft. Like, they're not going to trade up for a tight end because they'll probably have a tight end available at 20 anyway. they'll probably have Colston Loveland available there. Or they could trade back and they can have Gunnar Helm, or they can have Arroyo, the Miami tight end. So there's plenty of options for them outside of the top 2 tight ends. They're not going to trade up for Ashton Jaunty because, again, this is one of the deepest running back classes in a long time. So, like, I see no reason for them to trade up. I think if anything, they trade back in the draft. I can see them pulling that move, just stacking up as much draft capital as they can and fixing multiple holes instead of going for one guy who may be a bigger name. He might end up being a better player, but you can get a good value and you can fill 4 holes with that one pick as opposed to 1 hole. You know what I mean?
As a Broncos fan now, however, obviously I'm a Steelers fan. I want Shedeur Sanders. As a Broncos fan, how do you feel about them trading up for an Ashton Jaunty? Is that a mistake? Would you be upset on draft night if they moved up for him?
100%. Mostly because of it. I think Jaunty was awesome in college. I think he has earned every right to be the top running back prospect in this class. I don't know if he's going to be a great NFL player. I'm worried about his size. The dude's like 5'8", 5'9", small.
Mm-hmm.
He's not an elusive back.
Boise State?
Yeah.
That ain't Alabama, bro.
I don't love to helmet scout like that, say, oh, he's not going to make it because he went to this school. If you look at a lot of the best running backs in football, Derrick Henry, Alabama. Saquon Barkley, Penn State. Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama. Brian Robinson, Alabama. Bijan Robinson, Texas.
Yep.
Like, these are big schools they dominated in. And Ashton Jaunty was great, but he did it in the Mountain West. And it's just not as impressive. And he's smaller. He's not elusive. I think you're going to get way better backs in the 2nd or 3rd round. So if that's the move the Broncos do, I'd be furious. And I don't see the Broncos doing that. I think the Broncos are going to either hope that if they love Jaunty, they'll say, okay, let him fall to 20. If he doesn't fall to 20, we'll be just fine.
I agree with that. If he's available at 20, I think you got to consider.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not like oh my God, if he's available at 20, you got to grab him. Not necessarily. Yeah. Right? And you know who else could take him? If Denver doesn't take him, I think Pittsburgh might take him. Like, there's a few teams here when you look. I mean, Josh Jacobs, not that Green Bay's going to go running back, but homie needs some help back there. You know what I'm saying? If they would have had a 1-2 punch like the Lions, I think they'd have been in the NFC Championship. Yeah. But they didn't. They had one dude carrying the whole boat. And, they need a running back. Tampa needs some running backs, in my opinion. I mean, they have Rashad White and whatever. But, like, I could see a lot of teams in this 19, just right here in this wild card round loser category. 3 or 4 of these teams could go running back if Ashton Jaunty is available. So I'm also with you. You know me. I wasn't as high on Jaunty as the world hyped him up to be. And, he's the Heisman. And no, he's not. No, he's not. If he put up those numbers at Alabama, I'd have said, okay, you might be right. You might be right. But he didn't. So anyway,
or if he did those numbers at Boise State and he was 6'2", 220, like if he was built like a modern day running back a little bit better. But again, I know he is strong for his size and he's built well for being 5'9", but he's 5'9". And again, all those running backs I named that went to big schools, they were also big backs. Derrick Henry, monster. He's the size of a linebacker. Saquon Barkley is good size. Bijan Robinson's good size. Jahmyr Gibbs is surprisingly big. He doesn't look like it, but he's surprisingly big. Like,
who Jaunty reminds me of? Ezekiel Elliott. I think he could have 2 or 3 really good years, and then I think his size and I think he wears down very, very quickly. And that's kind of been my comparison for the year so far. So, man, Dallas, there's rumor that Dallas is going to go after him hella early. So who knows? But okay, final question for you on Denver draft-wise, and then I do want to ask you about a potential tight end that I think could fit very well up there in the Mile High City. But Denver at 20, let's say they don't move, just for fun. Let's say they don't move, they don't trade back, blah, blah, blah. They pick at 20. What is the one position right now, based on this board, based on needs, what position do you think they go?
There's a few different ways they can go, and we talked about this last week, and now that free agency is starting to come around, some news and some guys the Broncos are interested are circulating, so it can clear up some needs that the Broncos will have come draft day. I still think if he's still available, which I would imagine he's available at 20. I don't love taking running backs in the first round, but Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, if he's there at 20, I would have no issue taking him. The thing that Denver needs the most right now is a consistent run game. And I know you and I had complained about it last season, and other people have complained about it, but the Broncos just didn't run the football a lot. And Sean Payton, It was my one knock on Sean Payton pretty much consistently all years. He would abandon the run game a little too quickly. But even then, to Sean's defense, he didn't really have a run game to lean on. Like, it wasn't like he could just lean on a running back to consistently get even 80 yards a game. Like, we were struggling to get a running back to run for 50 yards a game at times in Denver last year. So I think if you can get a real run game in Denver for Bo Nix, it'll make life so much easier for him. It makes it so, let's say we throw the ball on first down and it's incomplete. On 2nd and 10, he can hand the ball off, get 5 or 6 yards, and now it's third manageable. Or it's 2nd and 4, and you don't have to throw the ball twice to pick up that first down. You can run the ball with a good running back. So it's not the sexiest move. It's not going to wow people on draft night, but Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, if he's still there at 20, which I would imagine he is, and we stay put at 20, I'd be more than happy with that pick.
You've been high on this guy for months.
I'm a big Hampton fan. Yep.
I think
he's got great size. He's 6'1", 225. He's surprisingly elusive for his size. And this is a really funny comparison just because of strictly the places they went to school. He reminds me of Javonte Williams before Javonte Williams' injury. Before Javonte Williams blew out his knee, he was on pace to be a top 10 running back in football. And then Javonte blew his knee out, and he was never the same. I think Omarion is very similar to Javonte, but a little bit better at all of the characteristics. He's a little bit faster, a little bit more elusive, a little bit better at catching the football. He's just Javonte, but a 10 out of 10 Javonte Williams.
And you like that pick right there better than Jonty.
100%. If both of them are available at 20, I'm taking Hampton. I think Hampton's going to be a better NFL running back than Jonty.
I agree. I'm very excited, my man, that you're saying that, because I'm agreeing with you on what you're saying there for the Denver Broncos at 20. Any other thoughts for you at the moment on your official free agent predictions here for the Denver Broncos that we have not talked about yet?
Yeah, and I know you want to talk about the tight end in a second, so I'm going to let you talk about the tight end in a little bit. I'm going to talk on some other positions first. One thing to keep in mind, the Broncos have about $40.5 million in cap space, which is a pretty decent amount. And I think it's 12th in the NFL in cap space. So they have enough money to make a decent amount of moves. If I'm speaking to Bronco fans, don't go into this free agency thinking we're going to sign some massive game-changing name. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Denver's going to sign 4 to 5 starters. They're not going to be stars. Okay. They're not going to wow people, but they're going to sign 4 to 5 guys who are day one starters on this roster. They're going to sign a wide receiver. They're going to sign a linebacker. They're going to sign a defensive lineman. They're going to sign a tight end we're going to talk about in a second. They're not going to go after guys who are that guy next year, instant Pro Bowler. But they're going to sign 5 guys who raise the floor of this roster tremendously. I think they're going to sign enough guys to be the floor for Denver right now is 10 wins and fighting for a wild card spot. I think this free agency is going to raise that floor to 11 to 12 wins and fighting for a chance at a deep playoff run type of move. They're not going to sign one massive name. They're going to sign a handful of names this offseason, in my opinion. And one name one name that's really underrated that not a lot of Bronco fans are talking about, but I think is not only a good player, but I think is going to happen, is Darius Slayton, wide receiver in New York. I think he was wildly underused as a Giant. I don't think they had a quarterback to get him the football. And I think he's not going to be super expensive. I think he fits this offense really well. So that's my one major prediction. I think Darius Slayton, wide receiver out of New York, he's going to be a Denver Bronco.
And as you see here, $35.6 million. Like you mentioned, there is enough there for them to go ahead and make a few big moves here, heading into free agency, during this next week here. But with all that said, the question that I have for you, and now this guy right here, Bryson, might take up a chunk of that $35.6 million, but I think he's worth it here. You want to talk about getting Bo Nix yet another weapon, getting this team really on that thing where they can come. You still got to go through Kansas City, bro. And I know that we're not all worried about Geno Smith, but between Geno, Pete Carroll, some of the early draft picks they're going to have, you don't know if the Raiders aren't going to be good or are going to be good. Now, it's not even for me about like, oh, are the Raiders going to sweep you? It's just about, will you sweep the Raiders or will you go 1-1 against the Raiders? That's what you got to try to figure out here. Obviously, the Chargers went on a late run to end the year last year, choked it away at the very end like they do. Shout out Justin Herbert. I call him the choke artist because he is, but whatever. It's still a very, very tough division. In my opinion, the second toughest division in all of football. So one guy that I think changes the game here for the Denver Broncos is Evan Ingram, tight end there. You and I have talked about it before. They need to get the tight ends more involved. Will Sean Payton involve tight ends more? Will he not? It's usually not his thing, blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, outside of the running game, it was the only other thing that I consistently watched and just felt like, man, imagine if we had our own Travis Kelce, our own Sam Laporta out there, just making moves, catching 7-8 balls a game, scoring touchdowns, making people think twice on Cortland Sutton, and or leaving the tight end open for 28 yards down the middle every fourth play. Do you believe Evan Ingram is in the sights for the Denver Broncos, or is there a team that you believe is kind of like, yeah, I want him, but he's going to blank?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the Broncos and the tight ends last year. I think last year they were 31st or 30th, so like bottom 5 in the NFL in tight end production. Part of that was a little bit to do with scheming. Part of it was the tight ends just aren't very good. Like if I were to ask you who the starting tight end, I know who the starting tight end was for the Denver Broncos last year.
Yeah.
If I were to ask a casual NFL fan who the starting tight end for the Denver Broncos last year, they probably couldn't even guess the name. They would have no idea who it was. So I think it was a mix of both. Evan Ingram would be fantastic. He's my number 1 tight end in free agency right now. I think he would be awesome. He would do everything you want for your tight end to do out of the passing game. He was easily Trevor Lawrence's like most consistent target for a couple of years in a row there in Jacksonville. Really, really good player. There's a couple reasons I don't think we're going to sign him, though. As much as I would love Evan Ingram, and I think he would definitely change this tight end room, he is getting up there in age. I think he's like 31, 32, so he's getting up there in age a little bit. He'll be a little expensive.
He looks 27.
He does. He looks good. He's going to drive up that cost. Mike Gesicki, who I think is a fair comparison with Evan Ingram, a little bit worse than Evan Ingram. Went for $8.3 million, which means I think Evan Ingram's going to go for about $9 to $9.5 million, if I had to guess. To me,
I think he's worth that.
I think so too, but I think that there's another tight end who I think they're going to go after him instead, and it's the most Broncos and Sean Payton signing in the world, and it's Juwan Johnson, the Saints tight end. 28, he'll be 29 by the time the season starts. He's not quite as explosive. He's not quite as dominant in the passing game. He's a better run blocker. That's one thing I'll give Juwan. He's a much better run blocker than Evan Ingram is.
He's massive.
He's a big dude. Juwan's huge. Like he's bigger than Evan Ingram. The thing that I think drives this home is he has a relationship with Sean. Sean drafted him. He was there with him for the first 2 years of his career. And I think Sean saw something in Juwan that not a lot of people did. And now that Juwan's kind of grown into being a starting caliber tight end in this league, I think Sean wants to capitalize on that. He won't be as expensive. You'll save a couple $1 million with Juwan over Evan Ingram. So I
got a two-sided question for you real quick, though.
Okay.
First question, if you believe Evan goes for 9-ish a year, what does Juwan go for?
I think he's going to be on par with the Gesicki thing. I think Gesicki should make more than Juwan. So I think if in a perfect world, I think Juwan signs like a 3-year, $24 million deal, so $8 million. So it's not the biggest gap in the world. But I think that $1 million would if you were to look at Sean and go, you can save $1 million and sign a guy that you know, or spend a little bit extra money for maybe a minor upgrade at the position, I think Sean's going to take the guy that he knows. I'm happy with either. I think Juwan Johnson is an
No,
upgrade.
you're not. No, you're not.
No.
Stop it right now. Let me tell you right now. Here's the other part of my question. Will Juwan Jennings win you football games?
No, but I don't think Evan Ingram's winning you football games at this point in his career either. I think he's helping.
Language bullshit. Evan Ingram will win you football games. Sam Laporta wins you football games. Brock Bowers wins you football games. I get that they're a little bit younger, but you can't tell me that you're talking about Juwan Jennings, Mike Gesicki. Evan Ingram runs better routes, has better hands, has way better numbers across all the boards. Yeah. He's still big enough to block. And you're going to tell me that this guy is $9 million, but you're going to pay $7.5 to $8 million for a dude that's, quite frankly, not half the game changer. You just talked about the fact that the Broncos tight ends weren't bad. They just weren't good. And all of a sudden you bring in a guy like Juwan Jennings. In my opinion, you're talking about age. Evan Ingram plays a hell of a lot younger than a guy like Juwan Jennings does. I'm sorry, Sean Payton, but I coached the guy for a couple years, about 10 years ago. No one gives a shit, bro. That doesn't matter. Evan Ingram is a baller. He is a game changer. He is a guy that will open up the passing game for Bo Nix. How many times did you and I say, everything looks great for Bo Nix, but then he has a couple bad decisions, or he doesn't have many options and he forces the ball? You got to start to open up the field for this guy, and getting Juwan Jennings to block for bum running back 1 and bum running back 2 isn't going to get you anywhere. Unless they already have the plan. We're getting a running back in the first round. We need some blockers. We're going to go Juwan Jennings. Bryson, I'm sorry, bro, but if you're going to tell me that Gesicki's worth $8 million and Ingram's worth $9 million, I do not in any world believe Juwan Jennings is worth anything more than about 6.5, in my opinion. So I think if we're only talking $1 million here, $1 million there, it's Evan Ingram every time. And if you don't go Evan Ingram, I think it's a mistake. And we're going to see it by week 4 when Bo Nix is still throwing to the same old guys and they're still running for 2.3 yards a carry. And we're sitting here talking about the same thing. And they could have been sitting here pulling a Sam Laporta on us, 2 touchdowns for 89 yards and 7 receptions. And instead, Juwan Jennings had 3 good blocks and 1 catch for 4 yards. Is that what you want? I don't know. I don't like the Jennings option. I like Jennings.
I think you're underplaying how good of a tight end Juwan is because he was in New Orleans with your guy Derek Carr throwing them the football.
He was also the number 2 though, and there was 2 options out there, and one of them was open almost every single time. That's not the situation in Denver.
No, but I think you are still underplaying how much of an upgrade Evan or Juwan would be over our current tight end room. He would instantly be marketably better than either tight end we have starting for the Broncos right now. Like he's instantly
for
an
the money.
Tight end position.
He better be.
Yeah, and listen, like I said, I'd be happy with either. I like both tight ends. I think both tight ends are excellent. I would probably prefer Evan Ingram, but it's not like I would prefer Evan. But it's not like if we signed Juwan, I'm like, that was a bummer. Like I would still be happy with Juwan as our starting tight end because I think either way, no matter who they draft or who they sign, they're also going to draft a tight end. So you're going to bring in 2 tight ends to this room anyway over the offseason. I think Juwan brings better blocking. I think he brings better size. He's not quite the athlete Evan Ingram is for sure, but I think both do improve your tight end room. I think that both do give you a chance to draft a tight end and have a veteran tight end and a rookie tight end right behind them. I'm happy with either. I'm speculating that Evan Ingram's going to go for 9. He could go for more than that. And I'll
tell you my real opinion. I think Evan Ingram's going to sign a 3-year, $30 million deal. And because he's worth $10 million a year. And if you don't think so, folks, you ain't paying attention. I'm sorry. I think he's worth it. And if he does sign for 2 years, God forbid, it could be 2 years for $21 million. Watch out. So here's the thing. If you can get Evan, if Evan is no cheaper than 10 a year and Juwan will go 3 years, max $21 million, He's not worth more than $7 million. Then maybe, Bryson, I can see it as a win. But if all of a sudden I roll over in my bed tomorrow and it says Jauan Jennings to the Denver Broncos, 3 years, $26 million, I think they lost. I think it's a bad move.
I think potentially. I think one thing to keep in mind, Evan Ingram neither tight end has had over 1,000 yards in their career. Neither tight end's had more than has more than 10 touchdowns in their career. Juwan Johnson, to his credit, has been on the same par production-wise as Evan Ingram with worse quarterback play. Like, over the last 3 years, 508 yards, 7 touchdowns, 368, 4 touchdowns, 548, 3 touchdowns. That's Juwan's stats. Evan Ingram the last 3 years, 766, 4 touchdowns, 963, 4 touchdowns, 365, 1 touchdown. So, like, production-wise, they're relatively equal. Juwan's a little bit healthier on average, and Juwan had worse quarterback play. I think if you gave Juwan Trevor Lawrence throwing him the football, I think he'd be a 800-yard tight end and six touchdown tight end pretty much consistently. But he didn't have quarterback play in New England. So I think that Evan Ingram got the benefit of having Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback, and Juwan had the misfortune of having Saints quarterbacks throw him the football. I think that's part of what's driving the difference between them. I do think Evan Ingram is a better player. He's worth more than Juwan is. I am saying that if it's either of those two that the Broncos sign, I'm happy. It's an upgrade of the tight end position, and we can draft another one and have an instantly better tight end room than we had last year.
Fair. And by the way, folks, I know I said Jennings. I apologize. I got a little caught up in that one there. Juwan Johnson. Here's the thing, man. I agree with you pretty much across the board. And once again, if we're talking about a sizable gap in pay, I do agree with you. I just don't agree with you if we're talking 8 million Juwan, 9 million Ingram. In that case, I don't think it's close. But if we're talking 7 million and 10.5 million, I agree with you. I think Juwan Jennings, Lord have mercy, Juwan Johnson is the way to go. And once again, if they do sign Juwan before the NFL draft, I think that's very telling about what they're going to do with that first pick. They will be going running back at that point if they sign a guy like him to block. So there's a lot of options here. Here's the bright side for the Denver Broncos, Bryson. We're talking about 2 names, right? If you're talking about 1 name, things are getting stressful. But not anymore. Now all of a sudden you got 2 options. You can play it out. You can do some bargaining, do what you got to do, get the guy that makes more sense. The only thing I want to see is I want to see this happen this week because I think they need to know before they go into the NFL draft. You need to know where you stand with tight ends because, one, there's not very many good available tight ends, and I don't really see a rookie tight end being the answer. They just tried out 2 younger dudes. I don't think that's the answer in Denver. So you got to go with Juwan or you got to go with Evan Ingram. 2 great options. We'll keep an eye on that, guys. But I do believe both of those guys will be going somewhere this week in NFL free agency. So keep an eye out. Bryson, my man, I know we got to get through here. We will be back, obviously, every Monday at noon. So we can go ahead and give the people what's going on with the Denver Broncos, NFL free agency up on our pages at Sports Blitz DEN for all Denver moves and at Sports Forum CO, Sports Forum Co. for all NFL major free agency moves throughout the week. Make sure to check it out. SportsForumMedia.com. We will have an end of the week biggest moves article for you up on there. My man, anything else Broncos wise heading into this week? Any bold predictions across the NFL in general that you want to make that you haven't made yet?
I don't know about any super bold predictions, but I do want to say how nice it feels to be a Denver Bronco fan and go into free agency and draft season and not have to talk about head coach searches, not have to talk about quarterback searches, not have to talk about GM searches. Like, it's been a while since Bronco fans can just go into an offseason and go, okay, we have the 3 major pillars set. We have our head coach, GM, quarterback set for next year. It's just about filling out the rest of this roster with players to help out. It's been a long time since Bronco fans can go into an offseason like that. So it's very relaxing, let me tell you.
It is very, very relaxing, my man. And I'm just looking forward to having a bunch of pop-up shows this week and going live because we see some of the craziest deals go down throughout the week. It's going to be a lot of fun. If we do that, folks, we might do some midday stuff, but most predominantly, it'll probably be like end of the day in the evenings. Once again, check us out at The Sports Forum there on YouTube. We'll be live on there talking about any major moves if there's a big day where, multiple different things are happening. So stay tuned for that. But my man, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. We got about 4 minutes to get through what's going on with the Denver Nuggets. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Denver Nuggets fall yesterday. Ugly one there against OKC. Tough first quarter. Got it back in the second. Stayed alive in the third. Crapped the bed in the fourth. And all of a sudden, it looks like a blowout. Your thoughts on that game? I know I saw you talking about some calls and some things that might have not gone their way there in OKC. Overall, how you feel? We talked about their road struggles before, but still a pretty good record. Any takeaway here?
Yeah, I think the biggest bummer or the biggest takeaway I have about that game against Oklahoma City was Denver really fought through about 90% of that game. And they kept it was a 1-point game at halftime. It was a 3-point game after 3 quarters. And it was a couple possession game until about 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And then Denver just kind of ran out of steam. Unfortunately, you could tell things changed in that game when Aaron Gordon went out in the first quarter, having arguably our best defender leave the game in the first quarter. Major blow. Nikola Jokic fell and landed on his arm, injured his shooting elbow early in the game, and he was never the same after that. Like, his shooting just wasn't the same in the second half, which was a big blow. And you mentioned it. I made some tweets about the officiating. One of the worst officiated games I've seen in a long time. And
wow.
I know that officiating doesn't lead to a 24-point loss. Listen, the Oklahoma City Thunder are a better basketball team than the Denver Nuggets. That's not what I'm complaining about. I know the Thunder are probably right now a better overall team. But it doesn't help when the officiating gives SGA every call in the world. And Nikola Jokic, who plays about as physical as anyone in the NBA, especially in the paint, gets a worse whistle than backups on Oklahoma City. Like, it's wild, the whistle that Nikola Jokic gets compared to other stars in this league. And so I know a lot of people are going to point out that the amount of penalty calls was relatively even. The free throw difference wasn't the biggest in the world. It's not how many calls were made. It's when the calls were made and when the calls weren't made. And in the second half, when the refs opened up the second half with 4 straight penalties on Denver, that just limited what Denver could do defensively, because now they don't know if they can do anything defensively without instantly getting a call thrown their way. So it was a brutal fourth quarter. It was a brutal end to the game. I'm going to be 100% honest with everyone and tell everyone the Oklahoma City are a better, deeper team than the Denver Nuggets are right now.
53-11, my brother. They are legit.
Oh, yeah. They're an incredible team, but they also have one of the best whistles in the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets fouls called for him about as well as anyone in this league. And it's hard to play against a really good team with the whistle going their way. It's like playing with 2 hands tied behind your back. So that was my big overarching thought about the game against the Thunder specifically.
7-game win streak for OKC, 9-1 over their last 10, a solid 24-7 at home. I know we said Nuggets second in the West, not anymore after what happened in that game, now third in the West. And Bryson, it just makes that matchup coming here midweek that much bigger, with the Lakers now 40-22 for them. Lakers also away 15-15, but 25-7 at home. Nuggets on the road 19-14, but both teams coming off a loss at this moment. I do believe that they both play one more game, maybe two before that game. So there you go. So still, Nuggets could be on top going into that game, but either way, it feels like the winner of that game will be in second and the loser of that game will be in third. At this moment right now, I know you're a Nuggets guy, but you got to try to put the bias aside for just a minute. Luka and company are starting to get hot, and it's showing in the standings. Will they be just too much for the Denver Nuggets on the road?
The unfortunate part for this game is just how much health plays into a factor for both these teams. I just mentioned Aaron Gordon left the game against Oklahoma City with an injury. Who knows if he's going to be healthy by then? Nikola Jokic is battling a number of injuries. He's refusing to leave games because of who knows how healthy he'll be by the time the Lakers play. LeBron on Saturday against the Boston Celtics suffered a groin injury. He's most likely out for a week, so he might be gone for that game. Luka's battling a back thing. So it's unfortunate that some of the best players in this game are either not going to be playing or not 100% for it. I know the last time the Lakers and Nuggets played, it was that first game with Luke. It was the first time the Nuggets played the Lakers with Luka on the roster, and the Lakers really dominated pretty much from start to finish in that game.
Yep.
It's going to be really tough not knowing the health, how healthy each team is right now. I'm going to give Denver the benefit of the doubt for this game, that they're not going to lose to the Lakers twice in a row. And that with no LeBron James, especially because I can almost guarantee he won't be playing in this game, that takes away one of the major pieces in this matchup. I think if it's just Luka going against the Denver Nuggets, I don't think it's enough for the Lakers to go into Denver and win. So I'm going to give the Nuggets the win here, knowing that LeBron James is already not most likely going to play.
Let's say no LeBron, no AG, but Jokic plays, Luka plays.
I'm still going to give it to the Nuggets because the Lakers are still battling some injuries with role players as well. Like they have a couple of their more important role players battling injuries going into that game too. So the Nuggets are just ever so slightly healthier, and the Lakers threw a really weird defensive game plan against the Nuggets, and I think no defensive game plan beats Jokic more than twice in a row, and Jokic has now faced that a couple times, so I think he now knows how to go about going against this Lakers defensive scheme that they've come up with. So I'm going to give the Nuggets the win. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. I think it's going to be more like within 6 points type of finish there. And just because of health, unfortunately, I think it's leaning a little bit towards the Nuggets side.
Well, in the meantime, my brother, really, really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and leave that on that. I agree with you. I do lean Nuggets in this game. Got to obviously keep an eye on Joker, though. It's going to be one of those games, in my opinion, that with 59 seconds and ticking, it's going to go possession by possession. It's going to come down to it. Will Luka hit the three? Will Joker get the call down low? Will they get the and one? It's going to really come down to it there at the very end of that one. Keep an eye on that one, guys. Might have an article for you, sportsforummedia.com on that game, just because it's such a big game. But once again, we're going to keep an eye on injuries because, God forbid, Joker doesn't play, AG doesn't play, and Braun doesn't play. I don't know how big that game is anymore. So Keep an eye on that one. But the Lakers, the Nuggets fighting for number 2. Thunder hold down the number 1 spot pretty tough. And by the way, unless you're sleeping under a rock, the Cavaliers are the best team in basketball. I told y'all before the year, and I'm going to keep telling y'all, watch out for this team, bro. Y'all still talking Celtics. F the Celtics, bro. They ain't that. But anyway, is what it is. We're going to leave you guys with some breaking news, though, coming out of the NFL world. That is breaking news. Josh Allen extension with the Buffalo Bills, 6 years, $330 million. You know what, Bryson? We gotta get the money up in here, my brother, because it is raining on Josh Allen right now in Buffalo. My brother, your thoughts on this one? 6 years, $330 million. Sounds fair to me. Do you like this deal?
Man, it's a lot of money to keep losing to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I don't know what to say. Obviously, Josh Allen's worth the money. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football. He's obviously, you don't just let a guy like that go. Josh Allen is one of those quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. Those are the type of quarterbacks. They walk into the GM's office and tells them what they're signing for. It's not the other way around. The GM doesn't call Josh Allen. He's like, hey, do you think you want this contract? No, Josh told them what he's signing for. It's obviously worth it. You get Josh Allen for another 6 years on that contract extension. He's, like I said, top 3 quarterback in this league. I know the money sounds scary, but this is what quarterbacks are going for. He's the reigning MVP. I joke that it's a lot of money to keep losing to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I think eventually Josh Allen will break through and get to 1 or 2 Super Bowls in his career. So if you think Josh Allen is going to be a top 3 quarterback for the entirety of this contract, obviously you do it 10 out of 10 times. So the number's huge. Not shocked that they got it done, though.
I am not shocked either, my man. Josh Allen couldn't be happier for the guy. Look, man, at the end of the day, if the one bad thing we can say about this guy is, oh, well, he can't get through Patrick Mahomes, who just always goes to the Super Bowl, I think there's bigger problems, bigger fish to fry than Josh Allen for falling short like that. Went on another run this year. Number one concern coming into the season was his turnover issue. I'm sorry, Bryson, but of the two guys we're talking about, who had a bigger turnover problem? Patrick Mahomes. So I think Josh Allen cleaned things up very, very well from game one against the Arizona Cardinals when he made that hurdle over Budda Baker. That boy said, watch out, I'm coming for it. He took a run for it this year. In my opinion, he had a much better year than Lamar Jackson did. Obviously, the real MVP, Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes falls short, gets there, but falls short. I think that next year is Josh Allen's year to really get up and go after it. So keep an eye on this guy. One more time, guys, breaking news, Josh Allen, 6 years, $330 million for this guy, man. Couldn't be happier for him. I know Buffalo's excited right now. Josh Allen deserves the money. But my man, it is time to wrap things up here. I know we kind of got off the Denver there for 2 seconds, but if anything, he's in the AFC, folks. So It counts. Is what it is. But until the next one, I'm Riggs Tamburo. That is Mr. Bryson Owens. You can find us at Bryson Owens 16, myself at Riggs Sports Talk, and once again at Sports Blitz DEN and at Sports Blitz Co. on all social media. YouTube at The Sports Forum. Click that subscribe button. A lot of stuff coming for you guys this week. Players Championship, NFL free agency, and a lot of other fun things. So keep an eye out. Until next time, Bryson, you ready for a crazy week, my brother?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, y'all. Take care.